and welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. So many times I bring a business owner on and they talk about, well, kind of their story and what they're doing in the marketplace. And today will be more of that, but with a twist, because we're really talking about publishing. How many people do you know, and maybe you're one of them, that you feel like you've got a book in you? In fact, there are what I call 9-pound pearls that you've paid a tremendous price for that you would really like to have deposited into the DNA of mankind. You'd like to create a legacy, tell your story. Maybe even just get your message into the marketplace of who and what you are and what you do. Well, today, More Power to Publish, morepowertopublish.com, Bob Baer is our guest, and he's going to tell you about some new developments in the publishing world that can help you get published and tell your story. Bob, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Patrick. Looking forward to it.
I am so glad to get you on here. We've done a show before.
We have.
And it was really kind of just an introductory of some of the services and things that you do. But your passion is publishing. And really not just publishing your work, but helping other people get published. Would you agree?
Especially helping other people. You were talking about those 9-pound pearls. I think there are so many important bits of information that people have learned and experienced, and it's just inside of them. A lot of people I talk to tell me that they have something, they'd like to write a book, they'd like to share, but they don't know where to begin.
Exactly. Well, I know that during today's show, we're actually going to do a bit of education. Okay, I think if you want to call it edutainment. And I want to get into the beginnings of publishing and helping you, or encouraging you to tell the story of what's the process, because a lot of people think, I want to write a book, but they don't realize that it's a monstrous proposition, isn't it?
There are a lot of moving parts, and from knowing me, Patrick, you know that I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like to start businesses, and what I discovered that publishing a book is really very similar to starting a business. In fact, in the book that I published last year, More Power, which is for entrepreneurs, I realized on page 17 there's a list of 16 questions that are intended to create an executive summary for business plan. But those same questions work beautifully for creating a book proposal. Most people think that they write a book, they publish it, and the world will beat a path to their doorstep, when in actuality there's a lot of preparation that goes in, and then once the book comes out, there's a lot of things they need to do to make it successful. Well,
I know that you've created a roadmap for success, from idea all the way through to what I'll call distribution, and actually earning money on the proposition. Because there's a number of reasons why to write a book, but the end result is either it makes money for you or it collects dust in your garage.
Well, just writing a book and the book selling usually is not the answer to everything. The book opens doors for you. The book introduces you to people. Books, especially for somebody that's already in business, especially for someone that has expertise in some subject, a book shows their position of authority, and it helps introduce everything else they have to offer. If you write a really good book, people are going to want to know, what else do you have? What's next? What else can you tell me? And that's one of the things I really like about publishing.
Well, isn't a lot of the books that you guys tend to publish are of the business mindset? They're nonfiction, right?
Right, right. I have friends that are in the fiction publishing business, but our press, Blazon Press, publishes books that are nonfiction, and I try to find people that have a message of hope, a positive message, something that will make a positive impact on the world.
Very good. Well, I know that when we get into, as we get into this, let's go into like the process. What do you see as the overview of what we're trying to cover today, and what your process is as a publisher?
I'll try to make it quick because, as you know, I'm going to spend 3 days on this in May, but in teaching business, I tell people that there's 3 legs to the stool. There's 3 important things about a business, and that is the visionary, the administration person, and sales and marketing. And it's the same with the book. The author is the visionary, and a lot of people think because they're a good writer, because they're creative, because they have some great ideas, that's all they need. but they need the administration and the systems. That's what the publisher does. And they also need sales and marketing, which is where a lot of people fall short, because once the book comes off the press, that's when it all begins.
Well,
and we teach people those things.
I think we've got a slide on that first slide, just talking about idea to bookshelf book creation, okay?
Yeah,
so basic overview of this.
That's an overview, the creative part of writing the book, and then actually writing it, editing, developing a platform, which they need to do throughout the whole process, and then design, production, the release of it, the launch of it, and the marketing, and we'll cover those.
Absolutely. I know that as we move forward into this this show, you're going to see a plan, a real plan on taking something from concept all the way through to distribution. Whether it's a business, and if you're a business owner, I hope you're paying attention, because great keys for marketing, development, and promotion of yourself as you really take your ideas to the market. If you're looking to publish a book, you ought to go to Bob's 3-day event. I know he's got one coming up in May.
In May.
And there'll be information on the commercial about that. But with that, I know this is the Business Spotlight. You'll want to catch the rest of this. We'll have fun. We'll be right back.
You can become a published author. Discover a system that will lead you from idea to having your book on the bookshelves. Bob Baer pulls back the curtain at the More Power to Publish workshop. Watch and learn how to follow the step-by-step plan to turn your idea into a published book. Learn more at morepowertopublish.com.
And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. My guest today is Bob Baer, morepowertopublish.com. And if you're thinking about writing a book in the next even few years, I would definitely go to his event coming up in May, and the commercial has information, and morepowertopublish.com has more information. You can go and learn the process and even get started in the implementation of writing your own book, and then getting the doors open for promotion, distribution, and actually having an impact in the world. Bob, thanks so much.
You bet. I'm enjoying this.
Good, good. This time we want to get a little bit further into your process of creative development. And I know that with the 3 parts that you were talking about, your visionary, the creative development is still part of that visionary.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people are afraid of writer's block. They don't know where to start. And there are systems to help people so that they don't have that. When I wrote More Power to Publish, or More Power, an Entrepreneur's Roadmap to Success, the system I used, and there are more systems than this, just this, but the system I used was, I had sat down and created my chapter titles. I knew the main subjects I wanted to cover, and then I wrote down a number of items in each chapter that should go in that chapter, but then I turned it into questions, and I ended up with 15 to 20 questions for each chapter, and I basically just sat down and answered those questions. I interviewed myself. Another way to do it, in another book I'm working on now, is I actually have somebody doing the interview, because they come up with insights and questions that kind of dig deep. And so sometimes we'll help people that way by interviewing them by phone, asking them more questions, and recording that and creating a transcript for them.
So you're drawing out of them what is this this 9-pound pearl. You're kind of extracting that, and then is there's help to put those pieces together in a system?
Yes, yes. There are also book coaches that we use that really help encourage and help people draw that out. But once the information is drawn out, there's various types of writing that we're talking about, and part of the writing can be the person who is giving the information, but part of the writing can be done by a developmental editor, somebody that knows how to turn what you have to say into something that's easy for people to read.
So we've got a graphic of that, and if they were to go to the creative development real quick on that, and pull that up.
I'm on to the writing
And
part.
then the next one, so that kind of gives you an overview of what we were talking about a second ago, and then to go on to the next part is writing. That gives somebody a kind of a visual of
It
what?
shows some of the different methods that can be used. Some people do better with one than the other. But it also helps to have a partner, it helps to have an encourager, it helps to have somebody to brainstorm with you, to give your ideas to bounce your ideas off of.
So anything else on that slide that we need right now?
No, because the next part, after you get all that information out, is moving on to the editing process.
Very good.
That's very important, but it's something that most writers themselves aren't that good at, and that's where a professional comes in to help them.
Well, that looks like a spaghetti web, so I imagine there's a lot of different options when it comes to the editing side of things, isn't there?
There is, and one of the things we'll be teaching at our conference is how to format and write your book to make it really easy for the editor, and to take the editor less time, which of course will end up costing the writer less to get it professionally edited.
So when is this conference again?
May 17, 18, and 19 in Irvine, California.
Okay, and they really can get a lot of the information at the morepowertopublish.com, right?
Yes, we're going to keep adding more and more information, more videos at morepowertopublish.com, and add more materials to help people out.
Now you want people to go there, kind of opt in or whatever it is, give them a little information. They'll start getting information about the process. They can go ahead and schedule, sign up. And if they have questions, they can call your 888 number.
Correct.
It's on the screen. So that just gives somebody an action step that if you have if you have a book in you, or want to see if you can publish something, you should go. Be a great investment, great tool, great systems. So what else did we want to talk about your system?
Well, we're going to try to pack a lot in. The next few slides, the one that says design, that takes a lot of people. One of the really important parts is the book cover, because you only have about 9 seconds to capture somebody's attention with a good book cover, and there's certain things that need to be on it. Things that authors don't often think about. You need to have a certain width on the spine so your title shows up. And there are certain things that should be on the back. And a lot of times, we help people whether they're going to self-publish a book, whether they're going to look for an agent, or whether they're going to get published by a traditional publisher. We try to help them do that. But a lot of times, on a self-published book, I take a look at it and they just have the wrong things on the back cover. So it's important to get good advice on the design, on the interior design, on the graphics, the layout. There's a lot of good information that we'd like to teach people about that.
Wow. I know that as we move into these next segments, we've got more information on how to get published and really get the most value out of being published. See, there's a lot of authority in having your own book, and you'll want to learn more about Bob's program. We'll be right back after this commercial. This is Pat Dewar. Thanks again. The Business Spotlight.
You can become a published author. Discover a system that will lead you from idea to having your book on the bookshelves. Bob Baer pulls back the curtain at the More Power to Publish workshop. Watch and learn how to follow the step-by-step plan to turn your idea into a published book. Learn more at morepowertopublish.com.
And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. My guest today is Bob Baer, morepowertopublish.com. He's a publisher, and he has the tools, the system, to help you get the most out of being published, getting a book. Have you ever thought about, gee, I'd love to write that story? Then Bob's the guy to talk to. Bob, thanks again for taking your time.
Thank you for having me.
I love what we're doing because we're trying to bring edutainment together, education and entertainment. And the idea is that we've actually been giving people real snapshots or path, the real path for going from idea all the way through to distribution. What are the next steps?
Well, the next step is once you have a manuscript written and edited and you feel comfortable with it, you feel happy with it, the next step is getting it published. And there's numerous routes, but the main ones that people hear of are self-publishing. Of course, you can publish electronically, and electronic ebooks is a growing segment of the market. You can find an agent who will help you find a traditional publisher. And there are some alternative methods and some hybrid methods of publishing that kind of give you the best of both worlds, self-publishing and traditional publishing. And we try to teach people the pros and cons of each method and prevent them from getting tripped up and guide them in the right direction. And then the choice is theirs, which would work best for them.
Very good. And in today's world, it seems like no matter what you do, you better cover all of the bases, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's if you're going to have a hard cover or a written form that somebody could hold in their hand, that has an impact, and there's a reason to do it that way. But then there's also the electronics, the Kindle, the Nook, the whatever. They've got all these different formats. Amazon's. They're all part of it.
The industry is changing so rapidly, and what we talk about now is going to be different 6 months from now. And so that's why we try to keep people updated, and even as they write their book and get ready to publish it, there may be changes that they might have to make adjustments in.
So in looking at the book production slide that we've got, what are some of the pieces of that?
Well, I mentioned cover design. There's the question of whether to have your photo on the book or not. There are the questions of the synopsis, your bio, and there's different length bios that you need depending on where you're putting it. And there's a question of what you're going to promote most heavily. Are you going to start with an ebook and then publish the book? And how are you going to publish it? We talked about. But more importantly than all of that really is what you do this whole time you're getting ready before the publication date. There are some other things that should be going on. And I'm going to go on to the next one here. At the release, when the book is released, there's some things to look at there. You get the printing scheduled, you maybe get ready to do some book signings. But the next thing that should have been happening all along is called platform development. And regardless of whether you're self-publishing or going to a traditional publisher, no matter what, people are going to be asking, well, what's your platform? And your platform means, who are you leading? Who are you influencing? How are you getting the word out? Unless you are nationally known as a speaker, even the biggest traditional publishers are going to ask you, what's your platform? And they really ask some almost embarrassing questions to people sometimes. How many followers do you have? How many connections do you have on LinkedIn? How many Facebook friends do you have? And they want to find out exactly, and they can find out themselves by going online. Another thing that we do, and most publishers do, is we do a vanity search. We immediately go to Google, type in the person's name, see if they show up anywhere. That tells us whether they have a platform or not. See if there's any bad things there about them. So the world has changed for publishing and for authors because of the internet. And so from the very start, they need to be building that platform.
Well, that sounds like it's like you said, from the very start, thinking about who is their audience. Who are they speaking to? Who are they going to be touching? Who's really going to, the right word is kind of resonate with? Who's going to get it? Whatever it is that they're trying to say, right?
And that's one of the things that someone should do before they actually even start their book, is figure out exactly who it is they're addressing this to. Who's their perfect reader?
But doesn't it also even entail things like you need to make sure that your social media is building during that time period, that your website is you're adding to your website, you're adding to its influence, its ability to reach?
In fact, one of the first things about websites to think about is if you think you have a book that you want to write someday and you're pretty sure you know what the title is, get that URL.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't even write the book unless you've captured the URL, or someone else might. It's important to have that. And if the URL itself isn't available, like on my book, More Power, I have morepower.com, but if that hadn't been available, I could have gone with morepowerbook.com.
Very good. And the one we're really talking about, the thing we want people to do here is get to your to your
Get to our
meeting.
workshop.
Get to your workshop at morepowertopublish.com.
Correct.
And if they want to talk to somebody, they can they can go to the 888 number. But the idea here is that if you have a book in you, go to morepowertopublish.com. This is Pat Dewar, and this is the Business Spotlight. We've got another segment to go, and you're going to learn more about making the most impact with all of your influence. Thanks. We'll be right back.
You can become a published author. Discover a system that will lead you from idea to having your book on the bookshelves. Bob Baer pulls back the curtain at the More Power to Publish workshop. Watch and learn how to follow the step-by-step plan to turn your idea into a published book. Learn more at morepowertopublish.com.
And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. Today we're talking about getting published. One of the things about getting published, though, is that it's a lot more complicated than you might have ever thought. If you've got a book in you, Bob Baer, it's bobbaer.com is one of his websites, but the thing you want to do is visit morepowertopublish.com so that you can get an idea of what it takes to really become I'll say successful published author.
I was just thinking in my mind, there's a difference between just becoming an author and becoming a successful or even a best-selling author. Amazon.com has something called CreateSpace, and a lot of people are uploading their manuscript and creating a print-on-demand book with CreateSpace, but it takes more than that. The last time I checked, the average number of sales for an author that did their own book on CreateSpace was 10 books.
Nice.
And, you know, their mom, their sister, their brother, they all buy a book, but you have to get the word out farther than that. And that is one of the places that a lot of authors, they don't have the experience in how to do a book launch, how to market their book, and sometimes publishers are so busy with their big authors that they don't give them the help and the time that the individual author, the new author especially, really should have.
I'm not even certain that they spend a lot of time telling them that, look, you got to sell this thing to somebody, you know? But you've got a system
Well, publishers,
for the launch.
people think that it's the publisher's responsibility to sell the book, but unfortunately, everybody has to be responsible for their own success, and they will help, but if you work together, it works so much better.
I believe. So as we're looking at the launch slide there, it's pretty complicated. What are some of the major hot spots that people need to consider?
There's a lot of different ways to do a book launch, which a book launch is the day that you're actually releasing it. And I probably have received emails about people that are saying, if you buy my book on Amazon.com on this particular date, then I'll give you these extra free gifts. And what they're trying to do is collect enough orders to become a bestseller on Amazon in their category. That can be done, but there are other lists. The hardest one is a New York Times bestseller. And you, first of all, have to be published by a traditional or a hybrid alternative form of publisher. If you're self-published, you're not going to get on the New York Times bestseller list. You don't qualify, or it would be extremely difficult. And in fact, there's things that we teach you to be careful with. If you're going to self-publish, there's ways to do it so you don't get into trouble with that and you don't hurt your chances later on of being picked up by a traditional publisher. So in the launch itself, there's different ways to do it. There's different ways to promote it, to open it up. But that really is an area that it helps to have somebody teaching you, giving you advice, helping you out on, because it's almost like an entirely different learning curve. It's totally different than writing a book. This is a specialized form of marketing.
Well, the only thing about it that I see that's really, it's just like a restaurant starting a day, you know, starting their shop.
Exactly.
They've done all this work beforehand. It's taken them almost a year a lot of times for them to open the door. They finally open the door 6 to 9 months or whatever later. Now they've got a launch that they've started. And your marketing system, I I mean, looking at your marketing system, let's put that slide up real quick, because your marketing system is very thorough. I mean, anything you want to talk about on the marketing system?
Well, there are a lot of different ways to market, and there's so many ways that are helpful with the internet, but sometimes people concentrate so much on one particular area, on one particular thing, and sometimes they're just wasting their time, frankly. Sometimes, depending on their book, and especially depending on who their target is, they need to focus on where the group of people they're trying to reach gathers. And how do they approach those people? How do they become their friends? The old saying, you have to get people to know, like, and trust you, applies to authors.
Mm-hmm. But the one thing about your system that I really appreciate is that, yes, it looks like just a lot of work, and it is, okay? But you're actually hitting all of the different pieces of the puzzle. You know what I'm saying? Because you've got different things like speaking and radio and TV and paper and, you know, blog posts and distribution, and then you're getting out there, you're doing all the pieces. And it is a lot of work to sell a lot of books, isn't it?
My friend J. Conrad Levinson, the Guerrilla Marketing, he sold 22 million copies of that. And in it, he has 200 different ways of marketing, 200 methods of marketing. But Jay says, don't try to do all 200. Find out which of those weapons, what are the best 4 or 5 for you. And so we like to help people consider that and find out for their book, for their audience, what are the most effective, powerful ways to reach their audience.
So somebody's got a book in them. What do you want to say to them now?
Well, to begin with, I love to share. I love to teach. Go to morepowertopublish.com. And we'll share more information with you. I'll give as much information as I can. And if they can come to the conference in Irvine, California on May 17, 18, and 19, that would be wonderful. If not, we'll share as much as we can from the conference.
Well, and then even beyond that, you're going to be doing these a couple of times a year.
Yes.
Dallas is one area for, I guess, in the fall. And then here, and then in Irvine. Forgive me out there in Irvine. But I will tell you that you should go to his workshop. I went to one last year, loved it, loved connecting with Bob. Integrity beyond reason, which is always fun. But go to morepowertopublish.com. This is Pat Dewar. The Business Spotlight is where business owners get to tell their story into the marketplace and then be published all over the world and the other methods that we use. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time.